Hello everyone. Yes, Alan, it's a correct day and correct time. We're just having our last minute checks, technical checks to make sure it's everything here. Rejoice, welcome. Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. I appreciate it. A huge shout out to Serverless Guru. Thank you guys for inviting me. And I actually put on my beautiful shirt that you guys gave me at reInvent last year. I hope everybody can see it. So shout out to all of you guys at Serverless Guru. Shout out to everybody that's gonna participate in this hackathon, all the way from
Yeah.
South Africa.
Yeah, we're not at the same place, but at least rocking the same merch.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here, Rejoice. I've been following you for a while on LinkedIn and seeing the really great job you're doing on EduCloud Academy. It's
Oh,
something
thank you so much. I appreciate that. I
really
appreciate
nice.
that. I guess this is a shout out to my own personal hero, Rocious, and my boss as well. He's great. EduCloud Academy has been doing such groundbreaking things. The idea of just building all those kind of workshops that relate to real time applications, it's just been amazing. Working with Rocious is like one of the best mentors that I've ever had, and that says a lot for me coming from a non-technical background. He's the great. So shout out to EduCloud Academy. Shout out to you, Rocious. Thank you for putting me under your wing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to work so closely with Ro as you, but I'm pretty sure he really deserves that shout out. Hey, Daryl, you're coming from Canada, a little bit far away, but hope
Mhm.
it's
Hey,
nice and
Daryl.
weather out there. Perfect. So for today, this is the first webinar that we have. We'll do. Oh, nice. We see Rocio's there already in the LinkedIn comments, sharing a little bit of love back with you, Rejoice.
Nice.
No pressure at all. The boss is looking.
No pressure, right?
Correct. So, oh, and also Kim, we the plans for today. It's the first webinar that we do this year for the Serverless Spring Hackathon. Today we'll do a little kickoff, meaning that first I'll do a little introduction, rules, what we can expect, and timelines for the hackathon itself. And
Okay.
then I guess the most important part, or at least why everyone has joined here, no pressure at all, is to see Rejoice and the perfect talk that I know she has been working on, doing that introduction to event-driven architectures.
Yeah.
So perfect. I think we can get started with the slides. Perfect. Thanks a lot,
Perfect.
Jonathan, for bringing them up. As mentioned, it's the kickoff for the hackathon today. As mentioned, we'll do a quick introduction from myself and the hackathon. I expect to not bore anyone or take too much time here. And then just a few tips on how to sign up for Momento and building systems that listen, so the fire talk from Rejoice.
Perfect.
Hackathon 101, or what we need to know for everyone that is looking to participate at this hackathon today. The challenge itself, so the important part, what do we need to do as part of the hackathon? The idea is for everyone to build a full stack Spring themed application that relies on event driven architectures. There is one additional requirement this year, so or in this edition, where a part of using event driven architecture, it will also need to use either Momento cache or Momento topics or bonus if you're able to use both of them. It's spring themed, meaning that like the last edition that we did, it was holiday themed with Santa and AI. This time it will be with event-driven architecture and with
Mhm.
flowers or whatever relates to you when thinking of spring. Similar to last year, the submissions They will be reviewed by a really, really, really great team. I'm very proud of the team that we have as judges and also the whole work that Jonathan has been doing in the background to align with all of them. As we can see on the screen, we have 6 heroes this year. So six
Oh,
heroes will be the ones reviewing your work, reviewing the submissions, and also, if you're lucky, replying part of the questions on the Belief in Serverless Discord server.
yeah.
Another announcement or another big part for this year is this year we have sponsors, meaning that we have more people participating in the hackathon. The first one, and I really can't thank them enough, we have Alan as judge, but also we have Momento as one of the top sponsors or the actual top sponsor for this hackathon. A part of
Yes.
Momento, we also have AWS Community Builder Program, who is providing some credits to give away as part of the actual prize. Moving on to the community sponsors, there are two ones that I really like, or two projects that I really, really like. The first one, as we were already discussing with Rejoice, is EduCloud Academy. I really like the product that Rosius and Rejoice are putting out there and the actual means for that project. So it's one that I'm really proud to have as part of this hackathon this year, and also the belief in serverless community and Discord channel. They are providing us with the Discord channel, or at least one channel there in the Discord server where everyone will be able to reach out to us or anyone in the community to ask questions, to share comments, find someone to team up for the hackathon. And even best, once the hackathon finishes, there's a really good community out there in the Discord server where you will be able to interact, meet other fellows, etc. For the event timeline, today, April 25th, we have the kickoff and Rejoice talk. Next week, on May 2nd, we have another talk. This one will be a little bit more hands-on or a more introduction hands-on to TypeScript and EventBridge and actually building event-driven architectures. On May 9th, we'll have another talk, that time being on observability for event-driven architectures. And if you want to know who will be giving those talks on May 2nd and May 9th, be on the lookout on LinkedIn for the actual post and announcement of the actual speakers. I'm really sure you will like them.
Yeah.
For May 16th, the last webinar that we'll have with a talk and also a demo. That time it will be regarding or implementing Momento topics and cache in event-driven architectures and providing a few tips and tricks in case anyone is still out there
Yeah.
not sure how to and or implement those for their applications. The last day or the submission, things get real on May 18th. The deadline will be on 11:59 p.m. on PDT time zone. So it's online. Make sure you check the correct time zone for be able to submit your project. On the week of June 2nd, we'll reach out to the winners privately during the week and also publish it on LinkedIn so that the last webinar as part of this hackathon series will be on June 6th, where we'll have all judges on screen joining the webinar and also the winners doing a showcase of their projects. The project submission, or what we expect everyone to deliver, is the same as last year, where the submission will be divided in three parts. The first one, we would expect everyone to provide an article or a written description and documentation of their project. The article can either be a public article, meaning on your own Hashnode, Medium, dev.to, etc., on the
Mhm.
repository's README file, or even if you want to submit the link to a PDF file. The important part for the article is it has to be publicly available. If you submit a link where we don't have access to that link, we won't be able to review your application. The second part, I know this one tends to be a little bit more complex, or people don't really like to be on camera. Me being myself, even though I'm here today with Rejoice, is recording a little video up to 5 minutes of how your application works. This one, you don't need to have it publicly available on the article. You can just record with Loom, for example, or have a private YouTube video and share the link. Same as before, the link has to be available without any method of authentication or any other part. And the last part is a public repository. This is one of the main requirements. Public repository, we want to see the code, we want to be able to review the code, and we want the submissions to be open source, or at least public repositories where everyone can learn from each other. The idea here being for everyone to work along themselves or along others, and everyone learning from each other. Now going to the important part, or the part that everyone are actually interested in, prices.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
prices that we have this year, we have been able to almost duplicate the ones from last edition thanks to those sponsorships, meaning that the third prize this year will be $800 in cash plus $200 in AWS credits. The second prize will also be higher, $2,700 and $300 in AWS credits. And the first one and the biggest one is combined value of $5,000, so 450 for US in cash and 500 in AWS credits. So the most important part. The hackathon, you can deliver the project either working it by yourself or in teams. The price is combined, meaning that if you're 3 in the team, you will need to split that amount between all members in the team. The evaluation criteria on how we will be evaluating the actual submissions will be the same. Backend architecture, article completeness, real-world applicability, and code quality. Meaning that it can be a really, really, really good architecture or application, but if it's not really that useful in a real-world scenario, or if the code quality is really bad, those might be some minus points while we evaluate the project. The rules. Eligibility is anyone or almost anyone that uses Momento Cache and topics. And if you participate, you agree on our terms and conditions. Another part that is really important, or at least to me, is intellectual properties. There are some hackathons where you give out the rights of the intellectual property of whatever you deliver. This is not the case. Whatever you work on is yours, and that will always be yours. You just need to share it publicly. Rules. One of the most important ones would be the conduct. Please, specifically in the Discord server, let's try to conduct as we would like others to speak to us, and to not ping everyone at any time, just if they don't reply the questions in a few minutes. We can expect everyone to work at the same time and have other things. The last part for me or for my slides will be on actually using Momento. Is as we will need to use Momento, you will need to sign up. It's really easy. You just go to the console.gomomento.com and sign up there. You can use an email address or just the single sign-on with Google or GitHub. After creating your account, you will need to create a cache and create a cache and a topic. You can reference the documentations. It's fairly good documented, every step that you need to do. Once you have created your cache and topics in order to interact with them, if you don't want to only do it through the console, since you'll need to integrate them into your application, you will need to create the API key. It's very easy. When working with API keys, always remember, we don't want them to get leaked, but there's always the opportunity or the chance for them to get leaked. So very important, least privilege access. Same as in AWS. If you're having one publicly available from the front end, for example, and there's no auth method in between, let's make it read only. Okay? Let's always make sure that we treat the API keys in a safely manner. Once we have everything to start working with Momento, one of the best parts of it, a part of the documentation, is also the public Postman collections. They have a set of collections with almost any scenario that you would need, with different examples like success response, error responses, etc. So that will be way easier to implement or to learn how to interact with them at the beginning. And lastly, join the Belief in Serverless Discord server. You have the QR on screen and also the link here. We'll also share it in the chat. Join us there. There's a channel for the hackathon itself. You can join that server and the channel. Drop there any questions you have. I'll happily reply or help anyone out that might need help over there. And now what everyone was waiting for is to actually learn something a part of the rules and criteria for the hackathon. I'll leave it now up to Rejoice to deliver her talk on building systems that listen.
Wow, thank you so much, Lorenzo. Thank you again, everybody. All right, I think we can kick this off. Right, I'm gonna share my screen. Just give me a second here to share. While I'm doing that, I think I would like to just ask a small question, right? How many of you have been to Africa? If you've ever been to Africa, just put it in the chat. I'm hailing from you all the way from South Africa, so hence I'm asking those questions. Right, I think. Jonathan, can you give me a thumbs up there? Is my screen visible? Or can everybody see my screen?
Thumbs up, and I'm giving the verbal confirmation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Of course. Right. So, back to the back.
All right. I was asking you a question, right? I said, how many of you have been to Africa or South Africa in general? A thumbs up would be nice. Well, and I'm not talking about the tourist kind of vibe. You know, tourists, you get to live in the nicest part of, which doesn't exactly depict Africa. Not to say there are things you should not see, but the reason why I'm asking that question is because I actually believe that South Africa is one of the smartest people and animals also in the world, right? And before you come for me, hey, hear me out here. Before you come for me, this is an event-driven architecture hackathon, right? So believe it or not, in South Africa, even the birds understand what event-driven architecture is. What do I mean? You might be asking. Just one little chip outside, right? And every dog in the neighborhood is backing up, like it's backing up a storm. You don't need to constantly check what's happening outside. You just need a little bad chip. Something happens, the dogs are barking, you just know something has happened. So today we are going to talk about building systems that listen. And this is a friendly introduction to EDA. And I hope by the end of this session, this webinar, if you are new to EDA, you have questions that can help you build better systems. And I also am hoping that even if you have been building systems in the past, event-driven systems, you sort of go back to the drawing board and analyze things differently. So consider this like a thought-provoking kind of session. So my name is Rejoice Mucheri, as already introduced. I'm a serverless developer. I'm a technical curriculum developer as well. I'm an AWS authorized instructor and an AWS community builder under serverless. Wow, that's a lot of things I had to say at one go, right? So to kick off, what is an event? How would you define an event? And I think the best way for me to explain this is like the simple English dictionary meaning, right? Where we say from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, where it says an event basically is something has happened, right? It's an occurrence, if we are to put it at the list, at like the least thing to think of. It's an occurrence. So for us to actually talk about events, we need to understand what they are. And an event is actually an immutable fact. It basically means something has happened, right? It cannot be changed. So what does that tell you? It's irrefutable. You cannot change it. For example, if I get a call on my phone right now, right, and I get a phone call, I can't change that. The moment I pick up my phone to answer that call, a couple of events have actually happened here. Number one, a phone call event. That's when my phone rang. Number two, a phone answered event. That's when I picked the phone and I answered it. I cannot unanswer the call. I can't uncall the phone, right? Like in essence, the phone rang, I looked at it, I picked it up, I answered. So it has happened. You are with me, right? So because it has happened, there are a few things that come into play here when we talk about building event-driven architectures. When we talk about building event-driven architectures, it's not every event that you need to consciously be mindful of when building your system. What do I mean? They are what are called technical events. I remember one time when I started learning programming and computer science and cloud, one of the things that I did at the beginning is I learned, I think most of you are familiar with Professor Milan, David Milan from CS50, right? I took that course. And one of the things that I remember, the first problem set that I had to do was Scratch. And I kept thinking to myself, all right, why are we playing with cartoons? Right? But what was happening there is that I'm trying to take you somewhere. When there was this particular component that was there, if you've ever played around with Scratch, it's a programming language that was made by MIT. There's this thing, this block that you find at the top that says, when green flag clicked, right? And that block actually tells you a sprite, which is basically like the little cat you saw in the previous slide, or whatever form you've chosen to do whatever you wanted to do in your software, right? So it says when green flag click, something should happen. Like for example, here you'll see when green flag click, moves the sprite 100 paces to the right? So this is actually a typical example of events, which means in your Scratch program, you're going to click the green flag and then your sprite is going to move 100 steps. So those are events, right? So now, what is an event-driven system? What do we mean when we talk about an event-driven system? And in order for us to understand what an event-driven system is, we need to understand that an event-driven system basically triggers business functionality from business events. I did say at the beginning, at the introduction of this, that I want you to come at the end of this, I want you to start questioning how and why you are building what you're building, right? There are so many buzzwords that we can deal with when it comes to EDAs. And sometimes we don't, as developers, we don't even know why we're building certain things. Why are you choosing those kind of events to trigger your system? So we are here to talk about, this is like a thought-provoking session. So as you listen, I need you to start thinking deep on what are those things that are going to trigger my business functionality. So in order for us to drive home what we mean when we talk about building systems that listen to events, number one, you're going to need to understand your business functionality. And when you understand your business functionality, you're understanding it in relation to business events, right? And looking at it, a good example, I'm going to give a beautiful example that happens in my life. My kids love ordering in. They love ordering in. If they could order in every day, they would probably do that. And I think the mistake I made as a mom was I think most of you are familiar with Uber Eats. Here in South Africa, we have Uber Eats. We have something called Mr. D. I made the mistake of putting my Uber Eats account, my Mr. D account, on my eldest phone, a teenager. And every time I'm sitting on my desk and I'm working and he thinks, okay, mom is too busy, he's just going to grab his phone and start ordering in, right? And I'm thinking, you can't order in every day. But then, and ordering food delivery system like Uber Eats and things like that is an example of what an EDA system is. So for the rest of this talk, I want us to imagine that we are developers, or think of it how whatever position you are at your company, for this fictional smart pizza restaurant, right, that uses this beautiful delivery platform like Uber Eats or Mr. D, as we have here in South Africa. And you are a mom who makes bad choices like myself, where you have put your banking details and the ordering up on your oldest child's phone. So now he has access to your banking and he can just order in and it's automatic, right? So you are sitting there. Imagine you are sitting and you are working, and then a notification pops on your phone to say order delivered or payment made for pizza. And you're thinking, wait, what? I didn't order pizza, right? What just happened? That's EDA in action. So at that time, we are thinking, remember we said earlier, you need to understand the requirements of your business functionality. So we said event-driven systems, they trigger business functionality from business events. So what would these events actually look like for this fictional pizza place? Let's call it maybe Bite Bites Pizza, right? As a developer of this Bite Bites Pizza, you are going to have to focus on certain kind of events that speak to the functionality of your business. For example, you see order created, payment processed. That's when Rejoice receives the notification and the deduction from her bank. Order confirmed, things like order completed, order delivered. So you are listening in to, you are the developer, right? You are listening into these key, beautiful components, that events that are happening within your business that make your business function. It's different from when green flag clicked. If you look at those two kind of events, they're a little bit different. What do I mean? For example, just like my kids would have me, would take their phones and order, they are not necessarily going to come to me and ask me to call the delivery guy every 5 minutes, right? Somewhere, somehow, the system will just know what to do, right? System should just notify you when something has happened. I'm not going to be picking my phone and be like, okay, how far are you? Are you here yet? Are you here yet? Are you here yet? Systems shouldn't have to do that. If I can't do that, why should your system always keep polling and trying to bring in events and check is something happened, is something happened, is something happened. That's the beautiful thing about event-driven architectures. So we are saying, how now do we achieve that? How do we achieve a system that doesn't constantly have to poll for information, like you would not poll and ask your delivery guy, how far are you? How far are you? How do we actually make our system listen? How do we make our systems respond to these little events that are happening within our making our business function? So when we are building this kind of systems, at its core, event-driven architecture is basically about reversing dependencies. It's about reversing the lines of communication. What do I mean by that? Instead of you calling the pizza store and saying, oh, I just placed an order, did you see it? The pizza place is sending you a notification and saying, Didi, we have received your order. So that speaks to rejoicing on her desk, coding or doing whatever she's doing, and then a notification pops up and says, order received. And she's like, but I didn't place an order, right? So the system now is notifying you. You see that? And when that happens, the system has actually received what is called an order placed event, for example, in this case. So what now happens? The language of your system, sorry, I skipped the slide there. The language of your system should actually speak to the software. What does that mean? When we talk about building event-driven architectures, I think most of you have heard of things like API first design. And many times when we talk about API first design, we first design our API, and then front end, back end sits together. We decide, okay, this is how you're going to be pulling information. This is how you're going to be polling. This is how you're going to be, the whole thing. But then in an event-driven architecture, the events are like the API. So it is a little bit of a buzzword. And this I learned from listening a lot to James Isham, that when you're building what are called event-first systems, it's more about design. That's when you begin to design what is called an event-driven architecture. So your events become your first-class citizens in this case. So what does that mean? I just spoke to you now and showed you what is called API first design. That is when you first design your API before you write any line of code. Now, in this case, you are designing your events. So what does it mean when we talk about you designing your events? And this is quite an important thing to talk about, because you are here for this hackathon, which you are supposed, as Lorenzo shared at the beginning, there are certain requirements that have been put in place for you to compete in this hackathon and actually build these event-driven systems. You're building these event-driven architectures, which means your system somewhere, somehow has to respond to specific events that speak to your business. So the first thing that you're going to have to understand is event first design. So what is event first design? What are the things that your business is trying to communicate? What are the things that you're trying to see in your software in terms of your business functionality? In event-driven systems, your events are your APIs. So when you normally build an API first, and then you start writing the code based on that API, we are saying we are making your events your first-class citizens. This means we are basically practicing event-first design. So how does that look? What are these? What is this event-first design? And when you think about it, you start asking yourself, okay, do I use events or do I use messages? And to be honest, in my opinion, as the more I study about EDAs, events, messages are almost similar, right? What do we mean by that? They are different kinds or different types rather of messages. We have, for example, commands. And what are commands? Commands is basically something that is saying, do this. It's self-explanatory in the word. A command is telling your system or service to perform a specific action. It expresses an intent to change something in the system. So it expects a result or it expects an acknowledgement. And the second thing would be events, which we are here for, right? So what are events? We said at the beginning, an event is an occurrence. It has happened. So in other words, you can't change it. So in this instance, you're saying it's a record of something that is already occurred. Events are facts. They are not requests. So you can broadcast them, but you can't change them. They have happened. For example, in our Bites Pizza place, if a kitchen receives an order and says order received, you can't go back and unorder what you have ordered. At best, you can go and cancel the order and get a order cancelled event. Do you see that? I hope it's starting to make sense. And then the last thing that is there in the types of these messages, which of course can be called events, are queries. And a query is basically saying, give me the information that I need, right? So don't try to overthink it. I like to speak in analogies and explain things in the most simple way because I found that it has helped me understand certain concepts given my background. So a query says, give me information, right? That's basically what it's saying. A query asks you for data or the current state, but it doesn't change anything. So when you have a query, it just expects a response from you. It doesn't cause any side effects, nothing. It just expects you, give me this information, give me this data, give me the current state, and it wants a response. These are the types of messages that you can find. Now, event-driven architecture begins when we start talking about how does all these things happen. A simple thing that I always like to use is a notification event, for example. A notification is like a simple small package of data that notifies another system that something has happened. And this is where you really start implementing your system, right? We are talking about event-driven architectures here. So how now can you use these events, these queries, to build the system that you're trying to build? Key things that you're going to be aware of and conscious of is, in an event-driven system, there are three main components, right? There is a producer or publisher, there's a consumer or the subscriber, and there's like some kind of a transport mechanism, which is like the event bus, right? Or a queue or a stream or whatever. This is the transport. And if you can look at my slide here, you will see that the producer speaks to the bus, the consumer speaks to the bus, but the producer and the consumer are not necessarily speaking to each other. So they have no idea what the other one is doing. So how does that now help you build a system that listens? In a way, the primary integration pattern that is at play when we talk about pub-sub integration patterns, we're saying, as a producer, your responsibility is to stick to that schema. You're sticking to this data schema that you have said we've agreed on. You are saying, I'm going to give you data that comes in this pattern, period. You don't care how many times you send it. You're not worried about the one who's going to consume it, whether you send 1,000, patterns, whatever, however, like you don't care. You're not worried about the consumer. If you look at the previous slide, a producer is just sending events to an event bus, period. So at whatever speed and rate or that you do it, is not your problem how the consumer consumes. And then a consumer, on the other hand, is just consuming this data. And it is the consumer's responsibility to plan for how much he can consume. So certain things become sort of decoupled in a way. The producer is not worried about what the consumer is doing. The consumer has to worry about his own part without worrying about, okay, producer, please stop sending anything. There's no correlation. There's no dependency on each of the systems. Each system is standing on its own, doing its job. So what I want you to think about, I told you that this is going to be a thought-provoking session. And given the time that we have, I just need to quickly wrap up. It is an introduction to EDA systems for this hackathon. And Lorenzo has already given you all the requirements for your for what you're building to be able to be looked at by the judges and put on the run for you to win the prizes. But now what I need you to think about as you think about this is, what kind of events are you building? We saw at the beginning that they are what I call technical events, right? They are events that speak to business functionality. A technical event, for example, is something like where you say S3 object created. Okay, the S3 object was created, but how does that speak to the functionality of the application you are trying to build? You see that? So the difference becomes, for you to build a system that listens, you are not just sending events into your system. You are not just building a system that takes everything. S3 object created, like I said, my phone has been answered, phone rang. How does that actually speak to the functionality of your business? So I would say, as you listen, this is an introduction, right? And as you listen to all these other all the different kind of webinars that are going to come, they're going to be at different levels. I need you to start. This is the foundation. This is the fundamentals of what you're going to build. What is the functionality of your business? So when you have understood what the functionality of your business is, it means you're going to probably have to sit down and do some kind of a brainstorming session where you have to understand what is it that is needed. And you look at this holistically, from not just from your end as a developer, but you are looking at things like, as a product manager, what would you like to see in this product, right? You as a developer, this is what you want to see. As an architect, what does he want to see in this product that I'm building? So the key things here becomes communication between the stakeholders of your application, whether it's just you or whether you are in a team. You are understanding the requirements. Is it an S3 object created event? If so, why? Why do we need to actually have an S3 object created event? Why not have, why do we need a order created event? Maybe you have an analytics team that wants to probably pay attention to certain provinces or states of who is ordering the most. So as you build your event schema, are you going to be conscious of that? What are you putting in your event? Are you going to be conscious of what information is in your event, so that you are able to build the kind of systems that actually listen? And when we say we are building systems that listen, what are we listening for? We are listening in to the functionality of your business. So as you build the Spring themed application, what is its functionality? That's what defines the kind of events that you're going to add onto your system. Do you need to do analytics at some point? If so what are you adding into your schema? Are you going to need, probably, is it like something that is a bit global, where you want to know, coming back to our analogy of our bites pizza, where maybe the analytics team wants to know what kind of currencies are ordering the most, which countries. So what kind of data should be in that schema? Do you see that? What kind of data should be in that event schema that is going to speak to that analytics team? So building then doesn't just become about you as a developer. It becomes about the full communication of the functionality of the business. So you're looking at things, all those little components. The product manager, what does he want to see in the product? The data engineers, what do they want to see? The business analyst, What do they want to see at the end using this particular application that you're building? So how do you plan for that as you build your system? You see that? So instead of you talking about REST APIs, etc., you now talk about what happens in Bites Pizza after an order is placed. What is happening? What's the functionality? As the order is placed, the pizza is placed, what then happens? What are these key steps and who is affected? And how do we best build a schema of an event that we're able to actually use to bring the functionality of our business to its full potential? See that? So, like I said at the beginning, EDA is basically fundamentally a communication pattern. So as you build your systems today, think about your business needs. I know it's a hackathon and you might think, okay, I'm doing this for fun. But yeah, create that fictional business idea in your mind that you're going to say, what are you? So I'll leave you with these keywords. What are you trying to communicate in that application that you've decided to build? What are you trying to communicate in your business? What are you trying? How do you show that in your system? Understand that shared language before you can build any system. Because the key to building systems that listen is fundamentally understanding the communication pattern. And you're using that to actually mold the kind of integration between the systems of your business. So I hope I left you with a little bit of thoughts. I'm out of time now, so I'm just going to close it here and hand over back to Lorenzo. But if you're interested in knowing more about event-driven architectures, I do have a few resources that I've put here on the screen that you can scan and you can read. You can read more about the different event-driven patterns, and you can just scan the code and look at some of that content. This is some of the content that I use to understand event-driven architectures, and I hope it will be able to help you too. And like I said at the beginning, this was supposed to be a thought-provoking session, and I hope you are thinking a little bit different about your events. I hope you're seeing things different about what you're going to build. So feel free to link up with me on LinkedIn, and I hope to keep seeing you throughout this particular hackathon. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lorenzo. I will hand over back to you.
Thank you, Rejoice. Where were you when I started learning about event-driven architectures? Really? It was like a good analogy followed by an even better one. It was really, really, really good. I
Thank you
really
so much. I
enjoyed
appreciate
that.
it. I hope everybody
talk.
found it insightful. I hope everybody's thinking now, like, okay, I thought I was gonna build this. Now I'm thinking, right? Because I think that was the idea of an introduction phase. An introduction phase is to get your mind reeling, to get you to start questioning certain things that you thought you were gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You already mentioned that South Africa has some of the smartest people. You just were the perfect example to delivering this talk. It was like the perfect information or the perfect information size of this is event driven, but not enough to get everyone worried or just confused about too many topics. So it was really, really, really good. Thank you a lot. And let's see if the audience had any questions about of. I really like the analogy of Kim of the cat meows and
Yes,
see the
that's
scent
a
of the
beautiful
treats.
event.
That was a really good one. I can see. Oh yes, here. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing it up on screen. A really good question from Buff Tomato. How do communication patterns differ in event-driven architecture compared to traditional architectures? And how do they influence system designs? It's a good one. Do you want to reply to that?
Okay, you can take that one first.
Okay. One of the biggest differences that I can see is the perfect example that Rejoice gave of the hat, with events being first-class citizens. In traditional architectures or architectures that are not that event driven, they're usually completely synchronous, meaning that there's one service talking to another service and waiting for the second service to reply. On event driven architectures, normally the relevance or the importance isn't on the answer of the second service or the second service
Yeah.
answering. It's the first service triggering an event. The one service triggers an event, and that's it. That's all the relevance of
Yes.
that first service. It's the responsibility of the actual bus or the other services to listen to that event. So as Ritos mentioned, it's events are kings now.
Yeah. True. I think to just quickly add that, if there's no other question, like Lorenzo is saying, you the event bus is listening in. So that's the difference. Usually you would send in you're polling for information, right? I gave that example to say it's like you calling the delivery guy every 2 minutes and saying, "Are you here? Are you here? Are you here?" Is it now with event driven, you get a notification from Uber Eats saying your order is on the way. So you are not necessarily trying to figure out what's happening. You Once that notification goes out, it's done. The other system is not waiting for anything else. You are now just going to watch your phone and wait for the next event, which is order delivered. So the two things, each system is actually independent of the other. It does what it does and it's done. So it means things can actually happen asynchronously. They don't have to depend on each other. If I hope that makes it a little clear.
Yeah, I think it does. That's also a really good point that everyone needs to be aware of, or at least the ones that are actually planning on submitting a project, is that mindset change of instead of subscribing to something and constantly pulling for that information, we now need to work or think the other
Yes.
way around.
Yeah.
Listen instead of asking the
Yes.
the whole time for the
Listening instead of
information.
asking. True.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay, so I guess that was the reply for the question that Buff Tomato mentioned. Let's see if there are any other. I can see any other questions on the chat. So, is there any closing words? If there's something that they need to understand or think about during this next week until the next talk, what would you think is the most important part or that
All right.
phrase?
I would say that just in closing, go and rethink what your business functionality is for this app that you are trying to build. And based on that, start thinking about when you figured that part out, it will be easy for you to actually design the kind of event schema that you need. Because your event schema has to speak to the functionality of your business, right? So I think that's all I can say in closing. I already gave so many examples, so many analogies. You're not gonna need a objects S3 object created event if you're trying to create a pizza ordering service. So what? Somebody created an S3 object, and so what? So don't remove the noise. Focus on the functionality of your business, and then focus on those that is your event schema. Then you'll be good to go.
That's a really good one, Rejoice. I also love that you remark or put so much relevance into what does the business need or what does that event mean instead of someone uploaded a file. No, it's not a file being uploaded. What's the relevance for business
What's the relevance? Exactly.
in that scenario? But yeah, I couldn't have it said any better. So thank you a lot, Rejoice, for joining us and delivering that wonderful presentation. Thanks
Thank you so much.
everyone here in the audience for listening in, dropping questions and messages. As mentioned before, we are on the Believe in Serverless Discord server. There's also the link in the chat in case someone missed the QR code before. Feel free to join that Discord server and reach out to us and just ping me on the Spring Hackathon channel or drop any questions, any messages there. We'll be more than happy to reply over there. Otherwise, see you next Friday for the next hackathon. Thanks, everyone.
Right.